All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, on the surface at least, do not expect Florida State to get an invite to join either the Big Ten or the SEC anytime soon. Florida State, along with Clemson, have recently challenged the ACC's grants of rights as they are seeking an exit, an early exit from the conference and more money. But both the Big Ten and the SEC are saying not so fast, as these two mega leagues are not exactly gung ho on the surface, at least, about bringing Florida State into either of their respective folds. And if neither the Big Ten or SEC currently wants the Knowles, then Florida State could be up a creek. And I say this because you look at it, the Big 12 could still be an option, okay? But would Florida State get the payday in the Big 12 that they're seeking? I mean, all of this, uproar for the ACC, at least for Florida State, came about when we saw the deals come down the pike for both the Big Ten and the SEC as far as the payouts that each one of those respective schools in each of those leagues are getting. Will the Big 12 be able to give Florida State the type of money that they're looking for? I'm not sure. Okay, don't get me wrong. You look at the Big Ten and SEC. Each of these mega conferences are loaded with national brands, but at least for right now, Florida State might have missed that gravy train. Now, are the Big Ten and the SEC scared off by Florida State challenging the ACC in court? Possibly. Okay. Well, we're going to see more of this play out in the coming months. I guarantee you that. But seeing how Florida State is trying to get out of the ACC and they don't have a new home yet, it's one of those where to me it's a little reminiscent of what we saw last year when San Diego State gave the Mountain West their notice only to do an about face when the Pac-12 imploded. Okay, so it's going to be very interesting to see what becomes of this for Florida State. Now, in the case of the financial grass being greener on the other side, it is if you're Florida State and you're looking to join either the Big Ten or the SEC. But right about now, you might have your work cut out for you if you're Florida State in regards to being able to climb that fence to get to that greener grass. So both the Big Ten and the SEC, they are at a point where they can be extremely picky as far as who they add to their fold. We're talking about the Big Ten being at 18 teams currently and the SEC being at 16. And both of these leagues are talking about each one being content. Think about last year, it was already set up that USC and UCLA were going to join. And then when the Pac 12 imploded, Oregon, Washington, as well. If they really wanted to, could have had Stanford and Cal. And I think, you know, two good brands, two national prestigious universities that would have fit into that mold if you're taking on four West Coast schools. But the Big Ten said no. So I think we're at the point with the Big Ten, they can be extremely picky. And I think the same could be said with the SEC as well. For me, another question is going to be, what would it take for either the Big Ten or the SEC to get to 20? I think for it to happen, at least right now, it would have to be a scenario kind of what we saw last year where the Pac 12 just imploded. And, we saw four schools leave the Pac 12 to join the Big Ten, four leaving to join the Big 12, and then two joining the ACC. If the ACC came apart at the seams, then I think, we could see the Big Ten and the SEC and the Big 12, step in to see who they could get to join their respective leagues. But a lot of that, is going to come down to what happens with these court cases. The ACC right now is truly a house divided. And in some ways, they did it to themselves. They signed those long-term grants of rights, and we see this every time around. Okay, when those new conference television deals come down the pike, somebody is content at the moment with the money that they're getting until they see somebody else getting more. And I'm just throwing these numbers out here as an example. If you see your league getting $25 million a year per school, but then you see a bigger conference getting $35 million a year and somebody else getting anywhere between 40 to 45, you're going to sit up there and say, hold up. And that's basically what is happening right now. Florida State and the other schools in the ACC, they got locked into that long-term grants of rights and the television deal, and now they're seeing a more lucrative deal for both the Big Ten and the SEC, and some of them, a la a Florida State, who definitely feels like they are a national brand, want to be part of that. But at the end of the day, the money that Florida State's getting from the ACC, it's not shabby. Don't get me wrong, but nonetheless, this is what happens when everybody is not on equal footing, and this is why we continue, or a big part of the reason why we continuously see teams looking to jump from one conference to another. So it's one of those for me. Will Florida State get its wish to join either the SEC or the Big Ten? If they do, I don't see it happening anytime soon. It's one of those things. It's going to be very interesting to see how this thing plays out in the courts, and depending on how this thing breaks down in the courts, that is going to set the wheels in motion for the next big round of potential realignment in college football, because it's one of those where, like I said before, the ACC is truly a house divided. And it's not just Florida State and Clemson. You have some other schools in that league that are sitting back looking to see how things play out for Florida State and Clemson before they try to jump ship as well. And then you have some schools in the league that are committed to the ACC and they want to go out there and make things work. So this thing could go a lot of different ways, but nonetheless, this is going to be the next potential big domino to fall in the world of college football. You look at Florida State. What are their best options at this point? I'll break it down like this. You can try to go the football independent route. You can stay in the ACC. You can try the Big Ten, the Big 12, or the SEC. For me at this point, I think the best option for them would either be football independent or just sucking it up and going and staying in the ACC, because the Big Ten and the SEC are at least saying on the surface that they don't want you. The Big 12 would be a fallback option for you, but money wise, is it going to make you happy, especially with the exit fees that you would have to pay to get out of the ACC? Football independent, can you draw that money a la, a Notre Dame, for an example, if you're Florida State, on a week to week basis? Possibly. Okay. Possibly. Okay. And then there's just staying in the ACC and trying to figure this thing out until the next round of television deals come down the pike. But again, this is what happens. And I've talked about this numerous times, and I'm going to continue to talk about this. There's no semblance of order in college football. It's every person for themselves. This sport needs a commissioner. It's easier said than done, because I feel like college football needs a commissioner. College football also needs revenue sharing. I doubt that happens, because good luck trying to get all of these conference commissioners, good luck trying to get all of these school presidents and administrators on board with revenue sharing when they're looking at it. Their bottom line is they have to take care of their respective school, not just for football, but other sports as well. You look at it like this: it's a numbers game, and the numbers game is all about money. And this is what these folks want. This is why we have these mega conferences now. This is why we're going to see a 12-team college football playoff this year. This is why we're going to see a 14-team college football playoff very soon. Money talks and everything else walks. This is going to be a battle of battles between Florida State, Clemson, and the ACC as these two schools are looking to get out of there. I think also at the same time, it's in the best interest of both the Big Ten and the SEC to say, you know what, we don't want Florida State. And part of me truly believes at this point that there's enough uh, resistance in both of those conferences right now to not want Florida State. I tell you, for an example, before when the rumblings really started last year, you had schools already in the SEC that said, you know what, no, we really don't want or need Florida State. And you look at it with the Big Ten and the SEC, they're kind of like the two godfathers, if you will, of this whole matter. And it's just like they're working together and they're not working against one another. So I think at this point, the only way that Florida State would get out of the ACC to one of those mega conferences, and I think if they did, it would be the SEC, just from the standpoint that if you're the SEC, you don't want the Big Ten planting a flag in your backyard. But it's one of those at this point, it only comes down to whether or not the ACC fully implodes. You think about the Big Ten and like they're, prior to them getting the Pac-12 schools, when they got Nebraska, when they got Rutgers, and when they got Maryland on board, it was all about the market that Rutgers brought to the table. We looked at the Big 12 possibly imploding at that point, which led to Nebraska joining the Big Ten, and of course, getting that Maryland market as well, that Baltimore area, DC area market. So that was beneficial to the Big Ten, bringing in the likes of Texas and Oklahoma, two national brands, two of the bluest blue bloods that there are in college football. Okay, right now Florida State still is a blue blood in my opinion, but they are facing resistance, and it's one of those. They're giving the ACC resistance, and the resistance that they are giving the ACC, they themselves appear to be getting from both the Big Ten and the SEC at the moment. So all I can say is stay tuned. This problem, and it is a problem, it ain't going away anytime soon. There's going to be the court cases are going to continue. Lawyers are about to get very wealthy off of this in the battle between Florida State, the ACC, and the Seminoles trying to seek another college football home. Will their request be answered? Only time will tell. But all I can say at this point, all of us simply have to stay tuned. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now, you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I'm signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.